Friday. Welcome to Mystery Unsolved. Not going to tell you my name because you should already know it, or else you wouldn't be here. It's another case or another episode, so tonight on Mystery Unsolved, I will be talking about the poison pill murders. That's a different one. Gotta stop saying it doesn't work. Doesn't work anymore, doesn't fly. So what were the poison pill murders? Well, that's what we're here to discuss. Without further ado, the poison pill murders. It's actually called the Chicago Tylenol murder, but for all intents and purposes, I'm calling it the poison pill murders because I took this episode from BuzzFeed Unsolved, you guys. The Chicago Tylenol murders were a series of poisoning deaths resulting from drug tampering in the Chicago metropolitan area in 1982. The victims all had taken Tylenol branded amphetamine capsules that had been laced with potassium cyanide. 7 people died in the original poisonings, with several more deaths in subsequent copycat crimes. So right off the bat here, you're gonna hear me cough a lot. I apologize. I just ate, and it's like right there. I can feel it. So right off the bat, we know 7 people died in the original poisoning, but here's the catch: several more people died because there were actually copycat crimes. That's a little messed up. That's a little weird. I don't like that. Let us move on. The dates of these deaths occurred between the months of September to October of 1982. 7 people died, poisoning, mass murder. The perpetrator is not known. That's why we're here. That's why we're discussing this. The motive, we don't know that either. That's why it's a mystery. No suspect has ever been charged or convicted of the poisoning. New York City resident James William Lewis was convicted of extortion for sending a letter to Tylenol's manufacturer, Johnson & Johnson, that took responsibility for the deaths and demanded $1 million to stop them, but evidence tying Lewis to the actual poisoning never emerged. The incidents led to reforms in the packaging of over-the-counter drugs and to federal anti-tampering laws. So there's one name, James William Lewis. Of course, he has to have 3 names because he did something wrong. It's usually how it goes. Or if you assassinate somebody, apparently they have to use all 3 of your names. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to break it down for you. We're going to talk about the incidents, perhaps the people likely taking the drugs that killed them, the investigations, and then the aftermath. So lots to go off of here. On September 29th, 1982, Mary Kellerman, 12, of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, died after taking a capsule of extra-strength Tylenol. Adam Janis, 27, of Arlington Heights, died in the hospital later that day after ingesting Tylenol. His brother Stanley, 25, and sister-in-law, Teresa, 19, of Lisley, later also died after taking Tylenol from the same bottle. What, do they all have headaches? Like, what's going on there? Within the next few days, Mary McFarland, 31, of Elmhurst, Paula Prince, 35, of Chicago, and Mary Reiner, 27, of Winfield, all died in similar incidents. Once it was realized that all these people had recently taken Tylenol, tests were quickly carried out, which soon revealed cyanide present in the capsule. Warnings were then issued via the media and patrols using loudspeakers, warning residents throughout the Chicago metropolitan area to discontinue use of Tylenol products. So they were like, the entire city of Chicago, when they found out, they're like, all Tylenol, not just the capsules, anything Tylenol. It says Tylenol on it, don't take it. The tainted capsules were found to have been manufactured at 2 locations, Pennsylvania and Texas, suggesting that the capsules were tampered with after the product had been placed on the store shelves for sale. The police hypothesis The police hypothesis was that someone had taken bottles off the shelves in local stores in the Chicago area, placed potassium cyanide in some of the capsules, and placed the packages back on the store shelves to be purchased by unknown customers. In addition to the 5 bottles that led to the victims' deaths, in the in addition to the 5 bottles that led to the victims' deaths, a few other contaminated bottles were later discovered in the Chicago area. In annual Mystery Unsolved tradition, apparently we have incompetent police officers jumping to the wrong conclusions. So the police think, I'm going to have to reread this, not because I like to be rhetorical, but okay. Suggesting that the capsules were tampered with after the product had been placed on store shelves for sale. Right. So then the police hypothesis was that someone had taken the bottles off the shelves in local stores, placed potassium cyanide in some of the capsules, and then placed the packages back on the store shelves to be purchased by unknowing customers. But isn't that a crime in itself if they're taking the Tylenol off the shelves? Like, who's someone? Is it someone that works there? Is it a customer that's coming in who's not paying for the Tylenol? And if they are paying for the Tylenol, well, there's a lot of questions there. That doesn't really make sense. If it was someone that worked there, I could understand. But then again, if it was a customer, did the customer pay for the Tylenol or did they take it? Does that matter? I don't know. That's why we're here. In an effort to reassure the public, Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturer of Tylenol. Oh, was that mentioned up top? It was, wasn't it? Johnson & Johnson. I'm just gonna I'll let that simmer for a bit. The manufacturer of Tylenol distributed warnings to hospitals and distributors and halted Tylenol production and advertising. After other incidents like strychnine added to Tylenol bottles in California, a nationwide recall of Tylenol products was issued on October 5, 1982. An estimated 31 bottles were in circulation, with a retail value of over 100 million, equivalent to 281 million in 2021. The company also advertised in the national media for individuals not to consume any of its products that contain acetaminophen, after it was determined that only these capsules had been tampered with. Johnson & Johnson also offered to exchange all Tylenol capsules already purchased by the public for solid tablets. Customers at airports outside the U.S. were asking visitors if they brought Tylenol medicine with them. Huh, that's interesting. Okay, let's go back up to there's one particular word that I caught hold of, which I'm sure if you watched the last couple episodes, you'll know what I'm talking about. That would be, of course, the poison strychnine. For those that don't know what strychnine is, it is one of the most deadliest poisons known to man. And apparently that was added to Tylenol bottles in California in 1982. All right, and then finally, customs at airports were asking people outside the U.S., hey, bring some Tylenol? Because if you did, we have to confiscate it. Why? Don't ask questions. During the initial investigations, a man named James William Lewis, the guy from earlier, was accused of sending a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the cyanide-induced murder. Lewis was arrested, tried, and convicted of extortion and sentenced to 10 years in prison. During the trial, attorneys for Lewis claimed that he intended only to focus on the attention of the authorities on his wife's former employer. Was her employer Johnson & Johnson, I would assume? Yes? Okay. Channel 5 of Boston reported that court documents released in early 2009 show Department of Justice investigators concluded Lewis was responsible for the poisoning, despite the fact that they did not have enough evidence to charge him. In January 2010, now mind you, this happened in 1982, okay? So this just goes to show you how long a cold case can go for, how incompetent police are, how much lacking evidence can be, and so forth, etc., etc. Lewis was okay. Wait, that's fine. In January 2010, both Lewis and his wife submitted DNA samples and fingerprints to authorities. Lewis said, "If the FBI plays it fair, I have nothing to worry about." Lewis continues to deny all responsibility for the poisoning. A second man, Roger Arnold, was identified, investigated, and cleared of the killing. He had a nervous breakdown due to the media attention, which he blamed on Marty St. Clair, a bar owner. In the summer of 1983, Arnold shot and killed John Stanisha, a computer consultant and father of three, who was leaving the bar with multiple friends, whom he mistook for St. Clair. Jesus. Arnold was convicted in 1984 and served 15 years of his 30-year sentence for second-degree murder, saying in 1996 from prison, "I killed a man, a perfectly innocent man. I had choices. I could have walked away." He died in 2008. I'm Why is that? Why is that in there? So this guy was apparently a suspect. He had a nervous breakdown. He killed a bar owner, but he ended up going to jail anyway. So like Lori Dan, who poisoned and shot a number of people in May 1988 rampage in and around Winnetka, Illinois, was briefly considered as a suspect, but no direct connection was found. So this woman, like 5 years later, 6 years later, sorry, was accused. In early 1983, at the FBI's request, Chicago Tribune columnist Bob Greene published that the address and grave location of the first and youngest victim, Mary Kellerman. The story written with the is that right? Was her name Mary Kellerman? I already forgot her name. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, all right. There was another Mary in there, I think. That's why I got confused. The story, written with the Kellerman family's consent, was proposed by FBI criminal analyst John Douglas, on the theory that the perpetrator might visit the house or gravesite if he were made aware of their location. Both sites were kept under 24-hour video surveillance for several months, but the killer did not surface. A surveillance photo of Paula Prince purchasing cyanide at a Walgreens at 1601 North Wells Street was released by the Chicago Police Department. Police believe that a bearded man seen just feet behind Prince may be the killer. In early January 2009, Illinois authorities renewed the investigation. Federal agents searched the home of Lewis in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and seized a number of items. In Chicago, an FBI spokesman declined to comment but said, "We'll have something to release later, possibly." Law enforcement officials had received a number of tips related to the case coinciding with its anniversary. In a written statement, the FBI explained, "This review was prompted in part by the recent 25th anniversary of this crime and the resulting publicity. Further, given the many recent advances in forensic technology, it was only natural that a second look be taken at the case and recovered evidence." On May 19th, Jesus, I talk way too far ahead. I talk so fast that I have to catch up with myself, if that even makes sense. On May 19th, 2011. Oh, that's why I said 11, because I looked dyslexia, I'll tell you. On May 19th, 2011, the FBI requested DNA samples from Unabomber Ted Kaczynski in connection to the Tylenol murder. Whoa! Okay. So the FBI is really doing some due diligence here, aren't they? Kaczynski denied having ever possessed potassium cyanide. The first four Unabomber crimes happened in Chicago and its suburbs from 1978 1980. And Kaczynski's parents had a suburban Chicago home in Lombard, Illinois in 1982, where he stayed occasionally. Ah, but you see that's good law enforcement work right there. Police officers in the last 4 episodes who are dumb as fuck, pardon my French, you could learn something from the FBI. The FBI had James William Lewis, who in all likelihood probably did it. But just to be sure, because they know Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, had ties to Chicago, they're like, you know what? It may be an insanely crazy idea, but let's ask him. That's good work, because this guy committed crazy crime. I mean, he was the Unabomber for Christ's sake. So they're like, you know what? Just to be sure, let's ask. I don't hate that. I respect the FBI for that. That's pretty good. That's good stuff right there. The aftermath. Hundreds of copycat attacks involving Tylenol, other over-the-counter medications, and other products also took place around the United States immediately following the Chicago death. Imagine living in a world where people look at 7 people dying and they think to themselves, hey, I want to try that. That would be our world, ladies and gentlemen. That's the type of world we live in. 3 more deaths occurred in 1986 from tampered gelatin capsules. A woman died in Yonkers, New York. Yonkers, Yonkers, Yonkers. My Twilight Zone fans will understand that reference. After ingesting extra strength Tylenol capsules laced with cyanide. Excedrin capsules in Washington state were tampered with, resulting in the deaths of Susan Snow and Bruce Nickel from cyanide poisoning, and the eventual arrest and conviction of Bruce Nickel's wife, Stella Nickel, for her intentional actions in the crimes connected to both murders. Huh, look at that one. That same year, Procter and Gamble's in Capron was recalled after a spiking hoax in Chicago and Detroit that resulted in a precipitous sales drop and a withdrawal of pain reliever from the market. In 1991, in Washington state, Kathleen Daneker and Stanley McWhorter, with these names, I swear, from 2 cyanide-tainted boxes of Sudafed, and Jennifer Millen went into a coma from a similar poison but recovered shortly thereafter. It is worth noting, this might be because the person that wrote it worded it wrong, but I'll repeat what's kind of weird to me. Kathleen Daneker and Stanley McWhorter were killed from 2 cyanide-tainted boxes of Sudafed. The box, like, before we've been just seeing, like, hearing the word capsules, tablet, because all it takes is one little tablet. But they just, I don't know, seeing cyanide-tainted boxes kind of implies, well, the whole box is tainted. But why would, I don't know. It could be something, it could be nothing. Where did I go? Okay. Jennifer's husband, Joseph. Okay, so Jennifer Mealing went into the coma. Okay. Jennifer's husband, Joseph Mealing, was convicted on numerous charges in a federal Seattle court regarding the deaths of Daneker and McWhorter and the attempted murder of his wife, who was abused during the Mealing's marriage. Oh, Mealing was sentenced to life imprisonment and lost an appeal for a retrial. Oh, wow, that took a turn. In 1986, a University of Texas student, Kenneth Ferries, was found dead in his apartment after succumbing to cyanide poisoning. Tampered Anacin? Tampered Anacin capsules. Anacin? Oh my god, what year is this? 1986? You don't even hear about Anacin anymore. Tampered Anacin capsules were determined to be the source of cyanide found in his body. His death was ruled a homicide on May 30th, 1986. On June 19th, 1986, the AP reported that the Travis County Medical Examiner ruled his death likely a suicide. Oh God, here we go. The FDA determined he obtained the poison from a lab in which he worked. Oh, these are really these aren't really entwined. The only connection is that there's cyanide poisonings, but then we're finding out that people are like, "Oh no, he wasn't the killer," because well, these are copycats. But like even so, it's very weird. Do we want to hear about Johnson and Johnson? I don't really want to. Pharmaceutical changes, we know about that. Let us go to the last part here. 1982 Halloween. While poison candy being given to trick-or-treaters at Halloween is rare, the Tylenol incident, which unfolded across October 1982, raised renewed fears of it. Some communities discouraged trick-or-treating for Halloween, and American grocery stores reported that candy sales were down more than 20%. All it takes is tainted Tylenol to turn the whole freaking country into a like paranoid people. All right, is this really a mystery? I mean, James William Lewis, in all likelihood, probably did it. But since we don't officially actually know that, let's go into some other possibilities, shall we? If it wasn't James William Lewis, could it possibly have been somebody else? Yes, obviously. Uh, we don't really have any name. Could it possibly have been Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber? Again, I respect the hell out of the FBI's theory on that. Could it perhaps have been one of the copycat killers? Maybe one of the copycat killers did it as a test experiment, and then, and only then, they decided to put the diabolical plan into action 4 years later by killing the wife or husband, whoever was a woman or a man. Yeah, that's not listed there. That's a good one. See, look at, I'm good. Is it another theory? I'm not going to ask what you think because I know how this goes. No one's watching now. Maybe in the playback. I don't know. Definitely an interesting mystery unsolved for sure. And of all things, Tylenol. Who'd have thought it, you know? So there were my three. There was a couple theories there. Number one, it was in fact James William Lewis. Two, it was the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. Three, it was somebody else that we just don't know about. Or four, what I think, and this is going to be my theory, what I think it was perhaps a copycat person from 1986 who, as a test run and trial, God help us all, killed 7 people in 1980 and then realized, what, I could still probably get away with this, and in 1986 killed their significant other. Definitely a possibility. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of Mystery Unsolved. Do stay tuned next week as I will be discussing, give me one moment please, the death of William Desmond Taylor. I have no unearthly idea who that man is or why it's a mystery, but we will find out together next week. For Mystery Unsolved, have a good one.